So this is my lovely model Iris, and today we're going to work with the chair and some stretch and some strength exercises that can be done with or without the chair. The chair may make some of the exercises more comfortable and more suitable for people who might have challenges with the knees or being able to get down on the floor, but you're more than welcome to get down on the floor. I'll give you lots of examples of how we can do the exercises in a whole bunch of different ways. You ready?
Yes, I am.
Take a big deep breath, reach your arms up towards the ceiling. Go ahead and circle those arms around a couple of times, Iris, because ultimately we would just love for you to loosen up. My goal is to always make everybody as tall as possible, because ultimately we might be feeling as though we're starting to wilt. All right, one more time. Reach your arms all the way up towards the ceiling. I want you to stretch up through your right set of ribs, and I want you to stretch up through your left set of ribs, and then through both sides. And we know that we have to remind ourselves to keep our knees nice and loose. So with a big breath, swing your arms around the back. And then, Miss Iris, will you turn sideways to the camera? I'm just going to show them what it looks like when you turn profile. Rotate your whole body around. So take those shoulders, draw them back and down. Good. Lift up through your chest. Make sure your knees are soft. And with just a little gentle motion, roll your head around the top of the collarbones. If there's any restriction or pain points, she's going to avoid all of that. She just needs to move where she can. She can change direction when she's ready. And then take a new breath in, release your arms, drop your arms to your sides. Again, we're going to make sure that her knees are nice and loose, but her posture is lifted up nice and tall. Tip your head to one side. So with this same arm, which is her left arm, her head's on the left side, just drop your arm just over the top of your head. Now, I would never want her to pull on her neck because that's dangerous. But while her hand rests on top of her head, she's going to take her other arm behind her back. And now if you'll turn to face the camera, Iris, what we're going to ask for her to do is drop this right shoulder and just stretch down that entire right side. So you're going to stay standing tall, but we're just going to stretch down this side while your head's on the opposite side. Take a breath, reach both arms up, and then just drop down the neck, the head to the opposite side. So now place your head down this side, so tip it over that way. This arm is just going to gently drape over the top of it. You got it. And this arm will slide behind her back, so that this space here from her ear all the way down to her elbow can just get some length while she stands tall, takes a breath, and just kind of drives those shoulder blades down the back. And then she can release all of that and just gently roll the shoulders. So with a little bit of lubrication up in the top end of the body, now we'll pay attention to what's happening from the waist down. So Iris, just place your hands on top of the chair for me, on the other side. So if you'll stand on the other side, just bend forward, place your hands on the chair. So again, this could be done on the floor. She's going to do the cat and cow stretch. So curl your back, arch your back. Move as much of your bones as you can. Shoulder bones, hip bones, neck bones. Some of us have a lot of access to that, some of us not so much. So just begin with what you can. You don't have to put a ton of weight into the wrists over the chair. Most of the weight is over the legs. And that way she doesn't have to worry about how much pressure is going into the wrists. Good. Now hold that big lifted cat stretch, Iris. Really lift through your rib cage, tighten your tummy, then let it drop. Good. And then I just want her to lean back towards her heels. Shift the weight so she's stretching back through the back sides of her legs. Good. And then I want her to shift forward over her arms. So she's going to shift forward. Keep coming, stay long, stay tall. Don't sink into the chair yet. And then again, sink backwards. So she's just going to drive back. Think about lengthening the legs. They don't have to be super focused straight, but she's just going to stretch them. And then again, drive forward, stay lifted. So she's just kind of rolling through her shoulder joints a little bit. And then one more time, back through the hips. So think about where your tail is aimed and try to aim it as far back as you can. Stretch through those legs. So maybe make one of your legs more straight, Iris. Straighten one. Oh, I bet there's some sensation back there. And then straighten through the other one, letting that one now bend. And the idea is to sink back through the heels and the hips. One more time, we'll make the switch. And then as she breathes another breath, she switches to the other side. It's great to individually stretch the legs because they don't always feel the same. Now we'll bend both of them and we'll round and roll your back till you're standing all the way erect once again. Good job. So roll the shoulders, stand tall, we'll keep the legs nice and loose. So I'm going to put her next to the wall here in case she needs it for balance because I'd like for her to take her right foot and stick it up on top of the chair. Ooh, that's a big step, isn't it? So while you stand tall, do me a favor, take the foot back down. And while you stand tall, will you do it again? I'm tricking her into a little exercise, so do it a couple of times. And here's the goal. If you can't quite get your foot all the way up on the chair, just set it up on the floor. But as you practice a couple of times, concentrate more on how tall you're standing. If you're fully falling forward, it's not an appropriate lift. But she's able to manage it enough that it might be a good strength effort for her to practice just one more time. You ready? Lift it all the way up there. Okay, now she gets to leave it there. So just sneak the foot a little forward on the chair, and she's going to lean in and back. Okay, so we want her knee to feel really safe and comfortable, so she can go as far forward over the chair as she has capability, which means we're stretching which side? The other one. Yeah, and back. Now if you don't have a chair, you don't like the big chair lift, I could just do it this way from the floor. So keep coming. Very good. And this time, stay in that forward lean, and I'm always going to ask for her to be super tall. Neither one of us break 5'5", but we're always yearning for it. And while you're leaning in the back leg, the one on the floor, her heel is sinking to stretch the calf, okay? So maybe I could tempt her to lean a little more. How's your knee doing? Good. If her knee said no bueno, we would back it right the heck up and skip on to the next thing. So now leaving her here just for another moment to stretch the hip that's on the floor, maybe stretch a little of this ankle. Take this right arm, the one closest to the camera, Iris, reach up and just stretch over the side. Drop the arm. Now see if we can take the arm wall, the wall arm, and go up and over this way. Can you balance?
I can, but my leg's tired.
And then we'll step on down. And then she gets to hula her way, very good, around. So it's always to tolerance. If she's feeling uncomfortable or starting to get tired, we just stop. We can always reset and go again, okay? So the leg that you weren't using, now that one begins again. So how about I switch sides with you, Iris? Come around so that way you can practice. She can practice her best can-can kick, right? Now this leg is much different. Right? Or it's tighter in the hip. So let's address that. Put it back down. Good. And instead of using the chair, because the chair feels a little high, we'll put a hand to the wall, and she's just going to bring the leg forward in front of the chair. Good. So practice the same motion. You just don't have to do it with the incredible height that this chair provides.
Okay.
So again, leaning in. And we always want to check. The knees should feel good. If they don't, we would alter the position. So far, so good?
Yep.
All right, so do it one more time. I always say lean in and out of it 2 or 3 times because the first one is never as juicy as the second and third. So stay forward, and we're just going to pause here for a minute. We're working to see if she can drive that heel into the floor.
Okay.
Good, chest is up. And maybe take this left arm, Iris, and reach up and over. And if you have enough strength, let's drive up the other arm, balancing, stretch up over. That was terrific. So she can use the wall, there's no reason not to, and you can step on back and then roll those shoulders. I bet she's ready to sit in the chair. Have a seat. So again, these are going to be exercises that you could do without the chair, but the chair happens to be a free piece of equipment that most of us own, so I'm going to take advantage of it. So while she's sitting in the chair, slide forward on the cushion so that instead of being all the way to the back, she's going to bring her rear end forward of the chair. Yep. Use your hands. You're going to put your hands right down on the seat beside you. And Iris, bridge up for me. Kind of stand into your feet and lift your hips off the seat.
Really?
Well, maybe even just a little bit. And if it's impossible to do, so there's the stand up. Now go back down. Good. Scoot your hips a little farther forward. And don't worry about standing all the way up. Just lean a little backwards, Iris. That's it. Now, if that's the extension that I can get through her hips safely, that's where I'm going to leave it. If she was able to take her hips and actually fully come off the chair, I'd do that. Now, because she looks a little nervous about that, I'm going to change my strategy here. Just relax your arms, okay? And pivot your body to the right. So turn sideways on the chair. Fantastic. Okay?
A little way?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, she can always hang on to the back side of the chair to make sure that she doesn't fall off or if she gets nervous about balancing herself. Slip this leg down beside you. So she's going to go back to looking like she's in that stretch lunge position that we did standing, but now she can do it this way. Now, can this leg go any further back behind you? Yeah? And then all you're going to do is lift this arm up. And while this hip and this knee is dropping and stretching towards the floor, just lift towards the ceiling, Iris. Maybe lean back towards the wall. Yep, so it's just a side stretch. Come back. Think of sliding the leg further back if you thought you could. There you go. Lifting up. And one more time. Slide the leg a little farther back if you thought you could. And then reach up. Reach over. Good. Now what if you relax your arm and instead of side stretching, just kind of settle into your seat for a second. Let this arm drop. As she sits up tall, I'm going to ask her to turn towards the wall. Rotate towards the back of the chair. That's awesome. So there's a twist stretch, and I bet that feels kind of good. So let yourself wind and unwind, Iris. So come back around the front and repeat that. Because again, each time she makes the motion, her body might give way a little bit more. She's going to warm up a little bit more. Do it one more time. Unwind, and then come back around. She can take this far arm here, the back arm, maybe drop it down here. Good. And then just let that stretch. Let those shoulders wrap around if they will. And maybe she doesn't twist very far, and that's okay. It's the lift that I'm looking for. I don't want her to torque and to really tweak her back. I just want her to lift up tall, maybe take her face as far around as her neck will allow, and then with that, she gets to unwind. Nicely done. Should we do the other side?
Sure.
Of course we should do the other side. So once she gets settled and she can turn herself in, because again, each side may not match. Sometimes we have a very different use in your right than your left. Yep, so as you sit up nice and tall, don't worry about twisting or anything, you're just facing forward. Just let this leg start to drop down, right? Now if we can, we'll just drive it back, yep. So the further back the leg goes, she's gonna feel a big stretch happening in the front of the hip. And for those of us that have to sit down quite a bit, this is crucial. Lift this arm up when you're ready. Good. And just begin to sort of stretch up towards the ceiling and just sideways. Don't let the arm or twist yet. We'll save the twist for last. So just come back to facing straight into that red wall in front of you. Yep. Lift these ribs way up. Don't worry about the twist. Yep. It's about this side of us dropping into gravity, right? Letting the ribs and the hips separate and then coming back. She doesn't have to linger too long, enough just to have a breath flow through. Up you go, over, and just think about this knee aiming into the floor, driving through the floor. It won't, but you can ask for it and therefore get some of that extra length that may stay tight in your hips. So you can relax that position. You doing okay so far? And now, go ahead and wrap around to the back of the chair. So now she can just take the turn and then unwind. And with each motion, Iris, just be sure you sit up very tall. Go ahead and wrap around again. Yep. The shoulders might turn, they might not. Come back around. And last one, grab somewhere on the chair, right? So you have something to hang on to. That's one of the reasons why I really like the chair. It's harder to balance, but we could certainly be doing this standing freely if you're strong enough to do it. So let the shoulders drop. See if she can take the head around. Just a gentle neck stretch. The hip and the knee drop to the floor. And then with her final breath, she can unwind out of all of that. Well done. All right, so as she spins back to face you in the chair, the last thing I'll have her do seated, because again, I don't want to do too much seated. We want to open the hip crease as much as possible because it spends a lot of time forward. But scooch to the front edge of the chair one more time. Separate your legs nice and wide. And I'm just going to have her spill forward. So if she's capable of putting her fingertips to the floor, which she is, then that's great. Now, she doesn't have to collapse into her hands, but already that spread between those inner thigh muscles could give her some stretch. Take in a breath. Now, Iris, what if you leave your right hand on the floor? Can I put your left hand up on your knee over there? Just prop it up on your knee. Now look to your left and feel like you're going to pull this shoulder way up to the ceiling, pushing on the leg to do it. So there's another twist. Good. She can put that hand back down. We'll put the right one up on top. And she's just kind of pressing, using the leg for leverage. So again, if you could do it standing, it would just look like that. Now make your way back to the center. Now I would never ask her just to use her back to lift her up. I want her to put her hands on her thighs and prop her all the way up with those arms. Nicely done. Now the other thing to be cautious of is I don't want her blood pressure to change so tremendously. I just turned her upside down, so I'm going to give her a second for that blood to flow back where it belongs. Bring those legs back together, roll your shoulders. Take in a nice deep breath. And again, I'm going to ask her to stand all the way up. Squeeze those buns and step into the heels of your feet. Good. So come around to that side of the chair. And while she's standing there sort of collecting and reconnecting her posture, slide your right arm behind you against the wall. Perfect. So now what she's doing is we're allowing her to open up her posture muscles so she can get as close to the wall as she's comfortable, okay? And once she's there, I'm going to ask her to rotate her head away from the wall as far as her neck will allow. Now, take a few seconds, Iris, and I want you to press your hand into the wall.
This hand?
Yep. And while you're pressing into the wall with this hand, this arm, she's going to take her nose and gently look down towards the floor by her shoulder, perhaps look up towards the ceiling. It doesn't have to be a tremendous amount of motion, just enough to sort of grease the wheels a little bit, lubricate some of that tissue in the neck, pressing into the arm behind her so her back muscles are firing. Good. And then you can slide that arm down, roll both of those shoulders. Okay, now we're gonna put her to work real fast before we give her a chance to stretch the other side. So Iris, just bring your elbows to the top of that chair cushion. Good. And if her hands can hold on to the chair to make sure she's safe and balanced, flip those palms. Walk your legs as far back as you feel safe. So Iris is a pretty strong lady. I've been working with her for a while, so I know that she's capable of planking. So now lean your chest over these elbows, and now her gut muscles are going to trigger a little bit or a lot, depending on how far back her feet are. Good. If we can let her hips drop in, she's going to add a tremendous amount of strength around all her seatbelt muscles. You're doing good. And as soon as she's fatigued here, I'm going to ask that she just shift back and stretch back into the heels and the hamstrings of those legs. You're good, so if you want to walk your feet forward, she's done this drill a couple of times with me, so she knows what's coming. So allow yourself just to kind of take a moment, to just drive back into the stretch in the backs of the legs. There you go. And then use your arms to go ahead and push you back up, Iris, so we'll get you back up on your feet, standing tall. And again, if she wasn't comfortable to go this low, she could do it to the wall, but if she was really, really tough and powerful and I had the screens, I would just put her right down on the floor. So come around this side, and you're going to stand on the wall, parallel profile to the wall, and we'll put your arm behind you on this side. So now we're going to make it even. Okay, so take just a few seconds. Now where she places her arm is dependent upon how her shoulder feels.
Mr. Pilates.
Yep. Yeah, Joseph would be very proud. So as she presses into the wall with this hand, I want her to spread her fingers. Every opportunity we get to stretch out the connective tissue in all of these limbs and little digits is a great idea. So she gets as close to the wall as she can. She's pressing into the wall, and then she's going to look as far away from the wall as her neck will allow safely, and begin to just look down and up. I don't know too many people who don't have a tight neck or set of shoulders. And then one more. Good. And then she can just sort of shake loose, let that arm drop, and let those shoulders roll. Okay, so one last thing, and then we'll call this a day. You ready? You've got to plank one more time from this chair. So she's going to place her elbows down, walk her feet as far back as she can. Hopefully I've given her enough space back there with the furniture. Without moving furniture. Now lean in. So however far you lean, it starts to get heavier and heavier as to what you're holding on to. So you can always manage the load by how far forward you are or how low down you are. Tighten your belly, tighten your buns, Iris, squeeze through your thighs, and we'll just make sure your chin stays over your chest. So if she starts to peek forward over her hands, I'll make sure that she realigns her neck a little better. Always take your good posture with you. Good. Now take that stretch back into those heels for a minute. Yep. Go ahead and place your hands back up on the chair. Use them to help push you back up. Yep. Now I'm going to leave her just for one more moment bent over in this all fours position. But come back so that you're perfectly over all fours. So she's going to place her chest over her hands. Long in the arms so she doesn't have to sink. Now, walk your feet just a little further back, Iris, so that you're in a perfect sort of, this part of you should be in good profile posture. So she has to soften her knees so that her back can be straight. Good. Just simply take your right arm, Iris, stretch it forward. Good. And slide your right leg back. There you go. So the idea would be, if she knew she wasn't going to kick my furniture, so I'm going to make sure she doesn't. Can we take this leg off the floor? Can we practice a balance motion? So I'm just going to pick it up. Yep. So she's got to shift weight into the standing leg. So she can put her hand back on the chair and never have to worry about it. Just extend this leg, and I'm just making sure I'm not pulling on, I'm just making sure she doesn't hit the furniture. Stretch this leg as far back as you can, lift up your posture, and then reset. Good. Iris, just angle a little out this way so that we have some free space for that left leg to do the same thing. So just kind of walk your legs around to your right. Good. And while she just kind of collects her strong stomach muscles, she can attempt to reach that other leg back. Now the good news is there's a great exercise in here too. She could lift the opposite arm and extend it straight forward towards me. Think length, think height. Excellent. And then she can put all that down, 2 feet on the floor, push herself all the way up, roll those shoulders, and we will declare victory. Thank you, Miss Iris, for being my terrific model. Good luck, you guys.